So what does diversity and inclusion mean for you, the small business owner? Probably not as much as you may realize, but you have to be aware of it. Kevin Ware, your Action Business Coach. And this video was inspired by one of my colleagues, PJ Weiland, who had a YouTube short on diversity and inclusion in a small business. And I'm linked it below because I think she did a great job. And I wanted to expand upon that in a little bit more detail so that you, the small business owner, can understand this. We have heard about DEI bantered around. It's epidemic in large businesses, large government bureaucracies. And what does this mean for the small business owner? Well, at the end of the day, not a lot, as long as you have some good common sense going on. Now, the first thing I want to address, especially with the diversity side of things, is first of all, you can't discriminate. You can't just go out there and completely not hire somebody due to, race, gender, sexual orientation, nationality, etc. Good example. I had a client once a number of years ago who was going to be putting out an ad, and in the ad for this group of employees, he had to put in the ad, "Women only apply." And I told him point blank, you can't do that. And he said, well, I just like women in this particular position. I said, okay, but can you just flat out discriminate before you even start interviewing? No, you cannot. You can't even discriminate in the interview process. So that's one thing. Let's just get that straight. You can't discriminate. But now here's the thing, is diversity is not necessarily race. It's not necessarily gender. It's not necessarily sexual orientation. It's not necessarily nationality. I'm going to give you an example. A while back, I was working with a client, and we were looking at a competitive company of hers within her industry. And we looked at this website of this company, and we noticed there's 21 employees in the company, 20 of them women, 1 man. And she made a comment to me, and she says, well, that's not a very diverse company. And my question is, how would you know? And here she says, well, it's all women and 1 man. I said, okay, fine, but what differences are there amongst those women? And number 2 is that when they interviewed, was that the best candidate for the job? And she says, well, I don't know. I said, so we can't just immediately assume it's not a diverse environment, even though it's almost all women. I'll give you an example. Nursing. Now, nursing is primarily women. My wife is a nurse. There are male nurses, and there's some really great male nurses. But why do the nursing field still have a majority of women? Because it fits for women who are a nurturing type. Not a lot of men are nurturing types, and that's not a negative, it's just a fact. So, what is diversity? There's 4 areas of diversity that we need to take a look at in your business, that we need to make sure that you have that level of diversity. Number 1 is diversity of thought. How do people think? What would happen if you hired people that all thought the same way? And that's a problem because nobody can think outside of the parameters that we've created for themselves. We need to have people who think differently. Number 2, diversity of personality. Why would you want to have a business where everybody had the same type of personality? That becomes very creating boundaries for everybody. Number 3 is diversity of behaviors. We don't want everybody having the same style of behaviors because some people are going to need to be detail oriented. Some people are going to need to be sales and personality oriented. Some people are going to have to be decisively oriented. Some people need to be that person who is consistent. We need different behaviors in a company. We can't just all have one behavior. And finally, diversity of communication. We all are going to communicate different ways. We don't want to just choose people because they only communicate the way we like. See, here's the problem with a lot of times is that we hire people who are like us. We get in an interview process and they interview that, oh, that person feels a lot like me, I like them. So what happens with a lot of business owners is they interview and they have a whole collection of employees who look, sound, and act exactly like them. That's not a very diverse culture right there. So we want to have people with different thoughts, different personalities, different behaviors, and different communication styles. But what we want to have is the sameness of company culture. We want to hire people who are going to fit the culture that we as business owners define. Now here's the key. If you have not defined what you want as a culture for your business and your company, then how can you hire people who are going to fit into that? So you have to define the culture that you want, okay? Now, one of the things is that some companies are going to be a company culture that loves fun, and it's a fun culture. Some are going to be companies with a very engineering precision culture. Some are going to be cultures where entertainment is key, and so that we need to be, out there. So different companies have different cultures, but you need to define it so you know the type of person you want to hire. Now, let's talk about inclusion. What does inclusion mean? In my opinion, there's three major things that we need to take a look at inclusion in your company. Number one is everybody needs to be treated with respect. Regardless of who an employee is, we need to have a process where everybody is treated with respect and treated well. Harassment of any kind is an absolute non-starter, and you as the business owner need to address that and address that quickly if it pops up in your company. The longer you fail to address it, the worse the problem gets. Number two, you need to have inclusion of ideas. We need to, every single employee who has ideas needs to be shared. We need to have an inclusion culture where people can throw things out, get ideas going, get discussions going, and not feel like these ideas have to be shut down. Now, do we implement every single idea that an employee brings? No, of course not. It has to fit and be an idea that's executable. Now, one of the great things in Japan is that they have what we call Kaizen culture. Kaizen is all about consistency in developing ideas and making small changes over time. It's constant, never-ending improvement, and that comes from everybody in the business working at ideas that we can put in place to make the company better. And then the third area of inclusion is opportunity and promotions based on merit, not who you know, not some sort of political gamesmanship, not sort of the, hey, this person belongs with my social club outside of work, so I'm going to give them the benefit of the doubt on getting a promotion versus everybody else. You need to have a system in your business that measures progress in a person's job. It needs to be measurable, it needs to be achievable, and you promote off of that merit. Now, so what does this all boil down to, you, the small business owner? If you treat people well, you hire for culture, you get everybody working well together, you do not have to be scared of diversity and inclusion. In many respects, it's a lot of common sense. So don't be afraid of it, but do realize is that you need to have diversity in those four areas: thought, personality, behavior, and communication, and include people with treating them well with respect, letting them express ideas, and opportunity and promotions based on merit. Go out there, make it happen.